You don't broadcast your habits, you just have them. No morning routine content, no biohacking announcements. You read, you think in quiet, you walk and let your mind run without filling it with someone else's voice. And while that looks completely unremarkable from the outside, neuroscience is starting to explain exactly why those invisible habits build something that louder, more performative routines don't. The people quietly building the strongest cognitive capacity right now aren't the loudest ones in the room. Here's what nobody wants to say about the other side: scrolling isn't weakness. Constant stimulation isn't a character flaw. The human brain is genuinely wired for novelty, for social signals, new input, quick rewards. That wiring kept our ancestors alive for hundreds of thousands of years. The problem is that it wasn't designed for today. It wasn't designed for a world where the real cognitive edge belongs to people who can do the opposite of what their biology is pushing them toward. That's the gap, and most people never close it. You're the one being called checked out for not performing conversation on demand. In meetings, someone always rushes to fill the space when you go quiet. You get told to speak up more, as though the silence means nothing is happening. And they're not wrong that it affects the room. Your quiet does something to the people in it. That part is real. But what's happening in that silence isn't absence. Neuroscientist Mary Helen Immordino Yang at the University of Southern California found that the brain's default mode network, the state that activates when you step back from direct external input, is where self-reflection, creative synthesis, and long-term meaning-making actually happen. It doesn't fire when you're scrolling, it fires when you stop. Your silence isn't disengagement. It's a cognitive state most people never let themselves reach long enough to matter. What do you do for fun? Read. You've seen the look, the polite pause, the nod that doesn't quite know what to do with that answer. Reading books looks passive, old-fashioned, quiet in a way that doesn't produce anything immediately visible. And to be fair, it is slower. That doesn't make it weaker. Neuroscientist Marianne Wolfe at UCLA spent years mapping what happens in the brain during deep reading. She found that literary fiction and long-form nonfiction activate areas linked to empathy, complex reasoning, and perspective-taking in ways that scanning headlines or short-form content simply doesn't trigger. Holding an entire world in working memory while processing new information on top of it isn't leisure. It's training. One guy I know, quiet doesn't say much at work. Read 2 books over a long weekend. Monday morning, a coworker asked what he watched. He said, "Nothing, I read." She nodded the way people do when they don't know what to say. 3 weeks later, in a strategy meeting, he connected 2 ideas no one else had linked. He didn't mention the books. He didn't need to. People see you walking with no headphones and assume something is wrong. In a world where walking means a workout, and a workout means tracking it, moving without visible output reads as aimless. And you can feel the quiet pressure to put something in your ears to make the walk look purposeful in a way others recognize. In 2014, researchers Marilia Pezzo and Daniel Schwartz at Stanford ran a series of experiments on walking and creative output. They found that walking specifically without structured input increased creative thinking by an average of 81%. Not because of the movement, because you're letting the brain work the way it's actually designed to work associatively non-linearly without being directed. You weren't doing nothing on those walks. You were running the kind of processing a desk and a screen can't produce. But here's something worth sitting with. Are these habits you've built, or are they things you retreat into because presence costs too much? Because there's a version of quiet that's clarity and a version that's just distance. One is an optimized brain. The other is avoidance, wearing the same clothes. Both look identical from the outside. Only you know which one is actually running. Most people type. You write things down. Notes, thoughts, lists, pen on paper. And someone at some point has told you it's inefficient. They're not wrong that it's slower. Typing captures more words. But in 2014, Pam Mueller and Daniel Oppenheimer published research comparing students who took notes by hand versus those who typed. The typists wrote more, captured more, and retained and understood significantly less. Because typing is transcription. Handwriting forces the brain to slow down, compress, synthesize, to decide what matters instead of recording everything. That compression is where understanding actually happens. You weren't being old-fashioned. You were processing in a way that left a mark. You close one tab, finish the thing, then open the next. People around you switch constantly, phone in one hand. Presentation, open 3 conversations running. And sometimes you wonder if you're behind. You're not behind. You're doing something most people have been trained out of. Earl Miller, a neuroscientist at MIT who has spent decades studying how attention works, Put it plainly, human beings cannot multitask. What we call multitasking is context switching, rapidly shifting focus, and every switch costs something. His research found that constant context switching can reduce effective cognitive performance by as much as losing a full night of sleep. What looks like staying on top of everything is actually running everything at reduced capacity. Your focus isn't slow, it's what they're no longer able to do. If you're a man, you've probably been told to be more available, more responsive, more plugged in. The pressure to always be on gets framed as professionalism, as what serious, ambitious people do. What you've actually been doing, protecting your attention, going deep on one thing, not fragmenting your working memory across 17 inputs, is what the research calls optimal. They just don't have a word for it yet that sounds impressive at a dinner party. If this is the first time someone put a name to what you've been doing quietly for years, follow for more on the psychology of quiet intensity. None of this requires a new routine. No alarm clocks, no tracked metrics, no announcement. You've already been doing the work, you just didn't have the language for it. A well-tuned mind doesn't announce itself, it just solves things other people gave up on. Which one of these do you already have, and which one surprised you the most? Drop it in the comments. And if you know someone who's been doing this quietly for years without realizing there was science behind it, send this to them. Sometimes just having the language changes something.